Hey guys, welcome to the Model Citizen Podcast. We're your hosts, Hunter and Michaela. We are so excited to have you here. All right, let's dive in.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Model Citizen Podcast. Here we are again.
Aren't you sick of me?
Yeah.
I feel like I have seen you more now
Mm-hmm.
than I have in my 31 years.
Yeah. No, literally,
Yeah.
it's a lot. It's definitely a lot. I'm so glad that we get along because we be hanging out, dude. For two gals that live 3,000 miles away from one another. Is that what it is? Is that how far away it is?
Yep.
We be seeing each other.
We do be seeing each other, which we will get into on another episode because I just want to talk about hey, why am I breaking out like I'm 14? Why?
Are you? Do you got like a little
Michaela
situation? Is it bad?
No, it's more than a situation. Like,
uh-oh.
Tell me the last time you have had pimples on your forehead, like here.
Oh gosh.
Like
I mean,
here,
a very long time.
Hormonal,
Yeah.
blah, blah.
Yeah.
Here, dude,
It's
I
rare.
literally have like 3 or 4. And then here is bad. And you know what's so funny? You know how when you come to New Jersey,
Yes,
and you break out?
yes.
I was in LA and I was breaking out the entire time I was there, and I came home and I have the worst skin ever.
It's got to be the water. It's got to be the water there, and
your skin acclimating.
Yes, your skin acclimated to the water out there. My skin's acclimated out here. I also think the fact that like travel really fucks your skin, and we all know that. And also, it's not like we were eating the best when you were out here. Like we were having all the things that normally would break us out. You know, like the dairies and the sugars. Like, say what y'all will, but like certain things break me out more than others.
I mean, listen, I know when I have eaten too much sugar because I will wake up the next day and I will literally look like I'm 16 again. And if you guys don't know, both Michaela and I were both on Accutane.
Yeah.
I did it 2 rounds. Did you do 3 rounds or how many?
I think I did it 2, but possibly 3.
Okay, I know you did it a little bit longer than I did.
Yeah, I think my depot shot one may have been my 3rd round after I got the depot shot, which fucked my skin. Yeah. So we both had pretty bad acne growing up.
Yeah, really bad. And I have a zinger here. That's like,
I don't even remember you having bad acne. Like for some reason, I don't recall it.
Do you know what's so funny?
Huh?
I was thinking about this the other day, and because I literally didn't. It was when I was dating the ex that moved away.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to go back and like scroll to find photos. Mm-hmm. I literally remember feeling so insecure that I was like, I don't want to even document this part of my life. So like, it's so hard to find photos.
Yeah.
But
Same.
yeah, it was so, because otherwise they wouldn't even prescribe Accutane. I don't know how it is in today, but literally it was so hard to get on Accutane back then. You had to go in every few weeks and get blood drawn. You had to be on birth control. You had to do all these tests.
I think you still have to do all of that.
You do.
If you're a woman.
It's a very like gnarly
it is
drug.
So gnarly. But like I always tell everyone, I'm like, go in, like if you've done everything, I mean, go in and talk to your derm about it, because like it changed my life for the better. Yeah. Like honestly, like it got rid of my acne for the most part. Like I would say it got rid of like 95% of the acne that I had and would have ever had.
Yeah. Same.
And today's sponsor is
Accutane.
Just kidding.
I wish.
We wish. One day we'll be sitting pretty with pharma, with big pharma. You know, now we're a little like sketched by big pharma, but one day, guys, we're gonna sell out so hard, bro.
Hope, dude. We can only hope.
We're gonna be like, get Zantac. Like it's gonna be something.
Yes.
Something for your eyeballs, maybe. You know,
from your lips to God's ear. Isn't it insane that we're pretty much almost in September? Like September is next week.
Yeah, it's actually
and not
really,
to be so boring and to talk about time and like
it's super boring.
Talk about the dates, but like and talk about seasons, but like
it is crazy.
It's actually insane. Also, the first part of this year was such a absolute shit show, literally the worst. And I'm praying for a better second half. Yes. But it's crazy that it's like fall, bro.
I know. It is so wild. And like I talked about this on my stories, and I'm definitely going to talk about it. Maybe like in another episode, we can do like a little like grief combo. And it's funny because, you know, we have a guest on today who also talks openly about grief, but we'll get into that in a second. But like I was thinking recently about how summertime is just such a time that reminds me of good but also grief, because that's when we lost our brother. And I was thinking about it and I was like, why am I so attached to summer all of a sudden? Like I've never been a summer girl.
Really?
Never. And you know this, like I'm an autumn, winter, cold weather girl. But ever since Tynan, like I'm so attached to summer and I get so sad when it's over. And I'm like, that's weird because I
Interesting.
don't technically love, it's not my favorite season. But then I started really thinking about it and diving into it. And I was like, okay, it's because obviously, as we know, grief is love. And I
Yeah.
feel an immense amount of grief during summer because that's when it all happened. And so it's a lot of love I'm really feeling because that's really what it is. So it's like this weird, like deep connection I have with summertime now that is like painful, but also very like connected. So I'm
Yeah.
feeling this like weird sadness going into fall when I'm normally like, let's go. Like, I'm so ready for like, let's get my cold weather. Let's do our autumn vibes. And
Yeah.
now I'm just like, wait, even though I've like
That's
really delved into summer this summer.
That is very interesting
Yeah.
because
I'm a deep
that is
thinker.
very interesting. You're a deep thinker.
Yeah.
Because I definitely feel like the holidays are definitely sadder for me
Yeah.
now too.
Yes.
But I also don't love
It's all
summer.
sad, really.
It's really every fucking week
every
and
day is
moment.
sad, but what if we could just switch gears real quick about something funny before we welcome our guests? I do want to talk about something random.
Yeah.
I saw someone commenting on a baby photo and it made me laugh so hard. They go, they're like, it's AI. Look at the hands. And it was the most normal photo of a baby. But I've decided I'm going to start commenting that on baby photos. I'm going to be like, this is AI. Look at the hands.
Dude, literally comment that on your bullies photos.
I will.
On your
I'll be like,
haters
this is
photos.
AI for sure, dude.
For sure. Look at the face. This
Why
is
does she have
AI.
7 fingers? Her hands look totally normal. Why does she have 7 fingers?
Dude.
And the person's going to be like,
that is absolutely hilarious. That
Yeah,
is absolutely
bro.
hilarious. Have you seen the trend going around? I think it's so messed up, dude. Like,
which one?
So messed up because this is actually someone's kids. Where they like
I'm probably going to think it's hilarious.
They like FaceTime like a baby who isn't like very cute. Like it's not true. It's
yes.
Yeah. And they're like, Mom, look, like this is my friend's baby. And the mom's like, oh my God. And they're like, we're FaceTiming. And the mom's like, oh my God, how cute. It's like,
oh, dude,
mean, funny, but mean.
Funny, but mean, but also like something I would do, and definitely something where you would be like, oh my God. And I would be like,
sure.
ugh.
For sure. I would be like, no, he's cute.
He's cute. You're kind of like me with dogs. Like you think every single baby is the cutest baby ever.
Yeah, and you really
and we've
do
talked
think
about
every
this.
dog is.
I think every dog is literally the most perfect
and that's
angel baby.
Not true. There's
it is
uggo dogs out there.
They're like uggo, but they're so sweet. Their souls are sweet. You guys, we have a very fun guest on today. I'm so excited. So I first found Laura, and we're going to talk about this when we get into the episode. I found her from a very viral TikTok where she was doing de-influencing. So she was doing this like, I think it's something that she does frequently. She talks about like de-influencing. She'll say like, what you don't need, you know, this Amazon product. You don't need that. And then I started following her because of that. I was like, oh, I need more of this. As somebody who like is friends with lots of influencers and has a lot of influencers around, and I'm also kind of an influencer. I was like, it is kind of nice to have someone sort of like check you once in a while and be like, oh yeah, you don't need that, like, you know, like that thing to put your dog food in that rolls on the ground. You know what I mean? It's like, you don't actually need that thing. And then I realized that she is like a personal trainer, and her approach is just so refreshing. Like that's like the word that I can use to describe Laura's content. Is it's so real, it's so stripped back, and it's so refreshing. So Laura is a multi-certified personal trainer and nutrition coach. She's the co-host of the Fit Literate podcast and founder of the Energy Academy, which is a global virtual fitness studio where she's helped people keep their bodies moving since March 2020. She's passionate about harnessing the connective power of social media to create community and start conversations about growth, self-compassion, and the messy business of babysitting yourself, which love that so much. We love. And you guys, we're gonna let her in. We're gonna have a really fun conversation about her and, her whole approach to social media and all the incredible things that she stands for. So should we get into it? Should we let her in?
Into it.
All
Laura
right.
Girard. People tell
it's
you
usually
like.
Maya Mitchell.
Oh yeah.
Is the first
I
one.
was just
it
gonna
used
say,
to be Selena Gomez,
yes, right
but I
off.
think that I think Gen Z is more like, if you say Maya Mitchell to someone who's my age, they're like, who? But
yeah, totally.
On TikTok,
but
it's always Maya Mitchell.
That's exactly who I was thinking. Oh, I love
That's
it.
so funny. Who was the guy? Who was the one that I was always getting? Oh, I was getting Alex Warner. Is that his name? Alex.
Who is
he's
that?
like from. He's from. He's from like the Hype House or whatever. You know, the Hype House kids. Do you know who they are?
Sure.
Yeah, one of those guys. And I was like, okay.
You're like, thanks.
I was getting so many of those comments. I was like, unfortunately, I see it.
Don't you love getting a comment where you're like, I can't tell if this is meant to be an insult or a compliment, and I don't know how to react?
100%.
Right.
Yes, and
I'm
that's
like,
usually always any comment I get. I'm like, all right.
What did you mean by that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm going to take that a certain way that I want to.
You're a Gemini, right? What is your best Gemini trait and what is your worst Gemini trait? I know this is such like a question for I feel like a Gemini
especially
would
as a
answer.
Gemini, this feels like so loaded.
Yeah. Do you feel like are you like a horoscope astrology girly, or is it more fun?
I think I'm a lightly. I'm a casual one. I wouldn't claim to know anything, but I do find it interesting. Same. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know enough.
For sure.
No, we're like
I'm like
you're right, completely.
I'm conversational, but I'm not fluid.
Right. Like conversational French. Exactly. That's like much like us. Conversational French.
Yes, we.
So my best Gemini trait?
Best Gemini quality. I will tell you, I always get along really well with Geminis.
What's your sign?
And my previous two, I'm a Sagittarius. My previous two partners were Geminis. So I'm like, there's something there with me and a Gemini.
It's the ability to yap, I think it's that.
Yes. I think that's it.
Yeah, because Kayla, you're a yapper too. I'm a Taurus. Okay. So I'm like.
Taurus and Gemini can be a little.
Like a cozy.
Especially as siblings.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm also casual with it. I don't even know. Like, all I know is I have two babies that are the most sensitive signs, and they ring that true.
Yeah.
Okay, so your best. Gemini
I feel like they're
trait.
both like the yapping ability. Like, if I have to package that up, like, I think I'm a very curious person. I think I have a lot of different interests. I think I can relate to almost anybody on like something that they're interested in.
Yeah.
But I also think I'm very self-conscious about my tendency to like talk out my ass or talk myself in a circle, which I think is why I'm like, no, I have a study to back this up. I have something I can prove it. But
I feel like something I love about a Gemini is you can drop them in any room and they will be able to have a conversation with anyone.
That's the best kind of friend in person to have. That's the best wing woman too.
Yeah, I don't have to worry about a Gemini friend.
Go. I've got my Cancer best friend who does that for me because I've got the social anxiety and she doesn't. But when she gets it going, we can make it really good. Like, we do our little shtick. Yeah,
I love it.
I love it. That's like Hunter and I. Yeah. It's all for the bit. It's all for the shtick. It's all for the bit.
You got it. So. And especially if you get to like play it off a few different groups of people who you haven't met, and then you can like tighten it up. Really find your rhythm. Oh,
yes,
nothing
totally,
better.
Right. Take it on the road, babe. We're taking the show on the road.
Hello, my darling.
Yeah. So, one thing that I found you initially from a reel about de-influencing. And listen, as someone who is like I'm surrounded by influencers that are my friends, and the people around me are influencers. So, not to knock it in any way, but it is so nice to have I saw it during a time, I think it was like literally like Prime Week or something. And you were like, hey, by the way, you actually don't need all this stuff. And I was like, now wait a minute, like she's on to something here.
Yes.
Like,
and also I will say this, Michaela, because you're the one to be like, no, you need this gadget that like, helps the pilling on the couch.
No, I love something that makes your life easier. Yeah. But like I am also a little bit minimal. But you are right. And you're calling me out on the carpet, and you're so right to do that. But one thing that you said that really hit me was you were like, you don't need marketing for something that like you actually need.
Yeah.
And oh my God, that literally hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, oh, that's so true. Like, you don't need to market water to me. Like, I'm gonna drink water.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was like, it was just such a breath of fresh air. And have you always kind of taken this stance when it comes to like consuming or like influencing? Because you have such a platform now. Do you feel kind of like, how do you balance that?
It is a tricky thing to balance, because you're not the only person who found me first through those de-influencing reels. And this is coupled with the fact that I make a substantial amount of my income as a content creator, which involves influencing to a certain degree. And I'm torn between wanting to separate those two titles and then also being like, oh, is influencer only a dirty word because like women dominate the industry? You know what I mean? So I have a lot of mixed feelings about that to start with, but there's
I'm the same. I go through that. I'm like, am I feeling this type of way because it is a woman dominated and there is so much negativity associated with it? And it's like anything like woman is always looked at as like, oh, it's over the top or it's too much. You guys don't need all that makeup and stuff. Like, you just get kind of
it's sort of a dirty little secret of like
which is it?
Everyone's engaging with this form of marketing and this form of social cueing and this form of like socializing, but we don't want to admit that that's what's going on, and that's what is really setting like cultural conversations right now. Like, it's not going anywhere. So influencer, whatever. But there are people who find me through the de-influencing reels, because I've done a few of them at this point, and I never set out to make that like my thing. And I'm certainly not the only person who makes that kind of content. And people really get their brains a little twisted about it, and they'll be like, oh, but the last video you posted on your page was an ad. And it's like, yeah. And if you don't need that and you weren't looking for it, I still don't want you to buy it. Like, it's less about telling you not to buy stuff and that we're all bad for participating in capitalism. Like, that's not our take. It's about, hey, can we just have a moment of pause, like one layer of separation between this thing that's not even being fed to me as a, would you like this? Maybe this could be good for you. It's being fed to me as a, everyone else has this and there's something wrong with you because you don't already. Like, just taking that moment to check in with our brains and reestablish our own sense of internal authority, rather than just taking in this constant barrage of really well disguised advertisements, which I think we're getting like really desensitized to. And so the way I kind of, this became sort of a tenet of my content, because I've been talking about this for years with fitness. It's the same as my ethos with like how we make decisions for our own bodies when it comes to our wellness practices, and how we engage with other people's bodies as a form of advertisement online, and how we talk about talking about our bodies online. So it's kind of a conversation I've been trying to have for a while, and I think it just clicks with people when they're like, yeah, I'm really fucking sick of seeing Amazon links. Like,
it's like, it's the real and the rawness that I think that so many people are just craving right now. Like, we, the moment influencers really stepped on the scene, it was like, okay, what's real, what's not? Like, how can I weed through this? And talking about your fitness background, and you do your personal training and nutrition, and you also, we're going to talk about your fitness studio, which is virtual, which is we're going to get to because it's absolutely incredible. Kayla and I always talk about how much we love your non-shame-based approach to fitness. We had a girlfriend of mine, Megan Roop, on a few weeks ago, and we kind of talked to her about the same things. But what I really love about you is that you just like, there's no, for instance, you're not like, oh, if I do this, I'm going to get rid of my love handles. It's like, no, there's actually a better way to think about that. There's a better way that we can move through this fitness journey. And can you touch a little bit about that? Did you always want to do this? Did you set out on this? The way that you speak, you seem like, did you go to school for psychology? Like what? Tell us a little bit about it. I'm like, what's your background?
Musical theater.
Well, I figured like an actress. I think I could see
performance based.
This is maybe where like the big like red flag raises up to half mast in the background.
Yeah, we're like, sorry guys.
Yeah, which honestly, like that's what I do all day, every day now. Is like tell stories to people and be like, "Ratata, look at me." So it is what it is.
Yeah. Listen, we're a safe space for musical theater people. No worries.
Thank you for saying that. That really means a lot to me. So
are you from New York originally?
I'm from a little nowhere town in Massachusetts, like an hour outside of Boston.
Yeah. Michaela, okay. She's far too sweet and kind to be from New York.
Don't say that. I love New Yorkers.
Wow.
I know. Listen, I live in New Jersey, and I love New Yorkers, but
listen, I think when you're from New York, I think there's a different, but I also feel like there's such a like no bullshit vibe that New Yorkers have that I think you have. But then again, that's not Massachusetts.
It's the East Coast popping out. And the thing you're picking up on is that I went to musical theater school in Indiana. So that made me so much nicer. And I think that has I think I've got a certain Midwestern sensibility of being like, guys, there's a better way. Did you know you can like talk to people?
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
But so the way the musical theater loops into the fitness career is that I have been a dancer my whole life since I was 3. And so moving my body was always part of my life. And I'm sure I'm not the first person to bring up on this podcast, like the tie-in between dance and having weird twisty feelings about your body. So that's, kind of haunted me my whole life. And then I moved to New York 3 days after graduating college with my degree in musical theater. And I worked a bunch of day jobs that were really hard on like my spirit. And I ended up working a woman who had been my roommate previously. I ran into her at an audition, and she was working at this gym and like assisting boutique fitness classes. And she was like, "Oh my God, come do it. It's the best job ever." And I took a class there, and they were like, "Oh, you have good form," which is a ridiculous way to hire people. I was so deeply underqualified. We got lots of messages in the group chat about like making sure that the female trainers were wearing enough makeup and like our hair was nice. It was not a great environment, but I loved it. I really, really loved it.
Yeah.
I really like my greatest ambition as an actor was that like the best thing that can happen to you when you're a performer or a creative is that you meet someone who has seen something that you did and they're like, that made an impact on me. Like and you have to get to the top level of what you're doing to have that experience.
Yeah.
And I was getting that every day. Just working with people and having them, even if it's just, oh, you like made me smile today, or you made this thing less scary. I'm trying to do something nice for myself and I showed up and you made it easier. Like that was so intoxicating.
Yeah. It's having an impact on people, which for some people isn't maybe a priority, but like that's the reason why we have our podcast to begin with, is we were like, it's a self-actualization thing to make people feel good and to like add to their day, even if it's just in the smallest bit. So I'm sure for you that was like you said, intoxicating. You're like, I can't get enough of this. This is incredible.
And I mean, it's boutique fitness in New York City, like in downtown Manhattan. There's a certain amount of glamour that made it feel a little bit like a show. So I like that part of it too. But like, if you can be the buffer for somebody having an experience that you've had before and you can make it easier for them, like that's what else could you possibly want? So I fell in love with that. I was like, guys, I'm not qualified to do this. You just liked the way I looked doing the workouts. So we'll talk about that later. But so I got certified as a personal trainer. And then I was teaching my own classes, and I was starting to build up like a small base of personal training clients based on people who had like taken my classes at the gym and were like, oh, you're the only instructor on the mic who's not like shouting about bikinis and like saying earn your brunch calories. So I like coming to your classes. And by that point, it was February 2020. And so that lasted for about a blink and a half. And then I was like, well, got to pay my rent somehow. And I started teaching classes online, and I've been doing that.
I love that. I love that story. I think that like you saw that need and you took advantage of that, and I think as humans, we A, want to feel needed, and B, want to feel seen, heard, and valued, right? So it's like, in combining those two things, you have success, I think. You look at the most successful people in the world, and that's typically, they have that solution for you, right? Did you find that during the pandemic, your success really took off, that things really took off with your online, because you do have a virtual fitness studio,
so
right?
my training program as exists right now, sorry if you can hear those sirens, I'm on a big street corner.
It's all good.
So my training program is called the Energy Academy. It functions as an online studio. It's based out of Manhattan because that's where I am, but it's entirely online. We have members all over the world on, I think, 5 continents we just hit, which is kind of cool for me.
Nice. There you go.
But it started as just like a 2-week group coaching program that I was running basically through Facebook and YouTube, and it's existed on so many platforms over the years, but it's taken a lot of different forms, but my goal was always to provide high quality personal training style training to as many people as possible at an accessible price point and in an accessible way. Because I think, with the onset of the pandemic, we all got used to like, well, why would I take an extra hour out of my day to like go to a gym and have to wear a bra and like shower 3 times when I could just roll out of bed in my PJs, do this, and then get on with my life. So
totally.
I think it's hard to be grateful for the pandemic, but certainly in terms of stepping out on my own as a business owner, it was the best bad timing. Both because people were more open to trying something, looking for something to hold on to for structure, willing to go virtual for fitness. Because TikTok was new and upcoming, and I got on there pretty early, and the growth of my platforms fed the growth of my business and vice versa. And also because it was, a break from the life I was kind of practiced in building for myself. And so it was an easy time to try something scary and new. Whether that was from a good place or that was just from pure panic, that's something I'll work out with my therapist. But like, it certainly lit a fire under my ass in a way that I hadn't had before. So it's the timing was definitely, I've been very, very lucky.
Yeah. I think like so many people went different directions during the pandemic. And I think that it's just like anything in life. Like you face this challenge and you can either like make something of it or let it consume you or whatever. There's all these different options. But like one thing that I love that you taught, like you're so anti-fear tactics, which I really appreciate. And you're so like, you know, like Hunter was saying, you know, you do this one thing and you're like, you can't, it doesn't work. Like what these people are saying is not truth about like fitness and anything moving your body. Like, I just think that that is so inspiring. And I like everyone who's listening, if you're interested in getting like any kind of movement in or whatever, like you have to go follow Laura because you just have such like a different and unique outlook.
Yeah,
when
it's
it comes
kind of funny because you had mentioned at the top of the show how like de-influencing and your business now almost kind of go hand in hand. And I was just thinking as Kayla was saying that, it's like, you know, so how many trainers are out there being like, do this, do that, and then you're gonna get abs, right? Like I remember when I was 16 years old, my favorite swimsuit model had said she did 150 crunches a day, and I was influenced by that. And I was like, ooh, okay, if I want to look like her, I'm gonna do 150 crunches a day. Done, right? And your approach is actually,
yeah,
that's wrong, but let's work through this together. So it really is that like de-influencing fitness as we know it, right? And I think that that is like a very important conversation in today's day. We're seeing a really big rise in what the body positivity movement is, or body neutrality, whatever anyone wants to call it. And I think a lot of people are feeling very scared because it's like, is this going away? Is this going back to the early 2000s trend of heroin chic? Is it, you know, going, are we heading back in that direction? And I think it takes people like all of us to continue speaking out and to continue being that safe space, because I think a lot of us have also seen our favorite influencers, our favorite celebrities, whatever, kind of take that route of going back. And it's like, whoa, who can I trust? Right? Where can I feel safe and seen? Because it seems like those people are dwindling. What are some things that you do for your clients, right, who maybe are having their bad body image days and are saying, you know what, I just need to do something. What would you do for your client?
The thing, when we start talking about body image, especially in a client trainer setting, first, like, it's my role as a coach to hold space for whatever that person needs, especially
right.
like, and I've done this a bit less recently because I think just the way I talk about bodies as I learn more has gotten more nuanced, smarter, whatever you want to call it. But like, I'm a person who's always lived in a thin body. I've never experienced a period of like weight loss, like great weight loss or body change in my life. So I have a lot of privilege that is kind of not even an elephant in a room, like a bull in a china shop that can pop in. You know, no matter what I say online, there might be people who are in the Energy Academy who joined because they think it's going to make their body look the way mine looks. And I try to be as upfront as possible about that's not realistic. 70% of this is genetics. And even if it wasn't, this is my job. There's so many factors that affect that. I don't have kids, you know?
Yeah.
When a client comes to me with a bad body image day, which happens no matter what your body looks like, because body image is in the brain, not the body. I find that like my first role is to listen. I think a lot of us usually, when we hear that like bad body image gremlin creeping in our brain, our first instinct is to feel bad about having those feelings at all. And I think this is because we're now I don't know, I'm 29 right now. And so I've now been through a few cycles of internet trends of watching things swing back and forth. And the body positivity movement as it exists online has been kind of bastardized from its original form of like a political movement for rights and liberation, for all people to talk about medical discrimination and, you know, workplace discrimination and access to public spaces. And it's been co-opted a lot by people who are in bodies that look much more like mine to being about feeling good about your body all the time. We've made some gains in terms of representation. Like that's something that I think has actually experienced less of a backslide. I think there are a lot of people who like really listened and learned and grew, and not just people, but also like companies. Like, was it like Bowflex has done a massive rebrand. For every company like Bowflex, there's a company that like started making extended sizes in leggings and then just like took them away and was like, people don't actually want that. So, you know, back and forth. But let's see, this is the Gemini brain that I was talking about. That's a bit of a liability. I'm like, oh, something shiny. So we've made some strides, but the biggest change probably, at least in the cultural conversation, has been just like a shift in what's considered polite, which is why I think we now have creators getting online and making basically like pro eating disorder content, feeling like they're a rebel and an iconoclast and just saying what everyone actually means, because now we're not actually allowed to talk about desiring weight loss, even though desiring a societally normative body makes sense when we're punished for the way our bodies look at every turn. But it's tricky to have those conversations out in the open because everybody's listening and everybody has their own feelings.
Yes. That's exactly it.
Yes. And everyone has their own triggers and their own,
and
even us bringing and talking about it, like we try to do it in the most sensitive way. But like one reason why we did want to bring fitness, like experts and influencers and, you know, people on is because like everyone wants different things. And one thing that we want our podcast to be is a place where people from all walks of life can come and feel like they're, you know, they're gaining something, right? Like they're, you know, whether it's finding someone new, finding someone whose ethos like fits and aligns with theirs. Like if we're having the exact same type of people with the exact same offerings every single time, like this is not the well-rounded, like, you know, it's not a representation of women as a whole, because we are so multifaceted. And I love how you said that, like it was co-opted and the body positivity movement was sort of bastardized from what originally was supposed to be, which was like civil rights. It's like, it's not just about finding clothes that fit, that it was such a deeper thing. And it just became like, it almost went into the machine of corporate and just got like spit out to be, oh, we just want clothes that fit us. And it's like, no, it's so
and they're still not even doing that.
Than that conversation.
Like, it would be
and they're
so
still
easy.
Not even doing
it's
that.
It's so funny because like I complain a lot to my various, you know, internet coworkers about like, it is truly so hard to market a business without trying to use shame or fear as a tactic, or like,
it is.
You know, posting headless images of myself and promising like numbers to people. But the nice thing about that is like that once people figure out that they don't need to engage with any of that, you don't go back because it just feels so much better. Once it's truly about like how it feels to you inside and not how it looks on the outside, you may have days where that ebbs and flows, but you're never, ever going to go back to where you were, because you don't forget that feeling. So it's kind of a waiting game of, you just need to trust that like people will hear whatever message you're sending them when they're ready. But in terms of like, I do want to answer your question about in terms of like working through a bad body image day with a client. I find that because like my business is primarily online, sometimes people have an idea of what they think I'm going to say because we have both a, you know, a trainer client relationship, but then we've also got sort of a parasocial relationship. And I've stopped talking a lot about especially my personal body image online, but I've tried to drift away from just feeling like we need to be in a corner, like correcting things and being reactive to all the really toxic content that's out there, and just be like we talked about with embracing the influencer term. I'm like, maybe I can just operate the way that other fitness influencers operate, who don't put this much thought into how they're treating people. And maybe the people who just are looking for that, but will recognize that they feel better when they're not being screamed at, will just come to you. And you don't need to be like, hey, this is wrong and this is wrong, because I don't think people respond well to that either. But because I don't talk about like body image that much, I feel like sometimes people come to me feeling shame that they feel bad feelings at all. And my therapist actually reframed this for me a couple weeks ago as like pain versus suffering. Because I was like, feeling bad feelings is not uncomfortable, but then it's like you make up these bad feelings about like, oh, I shouldn't be feeling this. I shouldn't be dealing with this. I should have figured this out already. And she was like, you can have the initial pain, but then you don't have to put the suffering on top of it. And sometimes all we need to do with a bad body image day, or, you know, whatever's in the room with us when we're just trying to do something good for ourselves with our like very limited time and attention span, is like accept that it's in the room with us. Like you're allowed to have a bad day and still show up to take care of yourself. And I think that's the part where we get past the rhetoric about loving your body and that's the solution to everything. I do, like, in my most sort of pseudo spiritual self, I'm like, yes, this has to be like a loving relationship. But I think a word people respond to sometimes better is care, because we think of love and we think about like Hollywood romance and, ooh, I'm like shaving my legs in the bubble bath and isn't it wonderful to be me and nothing bad has ever happened to me. And like ultimately the gross, disgusting, sad truth is like, we're all gonna die. Your body's gonna change whether you like it or not. Even if you did all the things that people told you were the right things, even if you had the body that you could Mrs. Potato Head together to make it the ideal, that's one moment in time and it's still going to change. It's still gonna leave you. You don't get to keep it. So
that's very
No,
sorry
not
to
at all.
cut you off. I love that you're saying that. And really quickly, Michaela and I talk about this very often. And I know that you lost your mother in 2020, and we're so sorry about that. We lost our little brother in 2021. And we always talk about how once grief touches you in such an immense way, the stuff you cared about before is so minute and like it's just so silly, right? And you almost have a new look on life almost immediately, because you're like, whoa, like you just said, right? Like we're all gonna go one day. So
it puts things highly into it contrasts things a lot more, I would say, than like the average person who hasn't quite had that experience. And I think almost everyone probably will have that. You know, obviously, I think everyone has their own walk with grief, and some it's, very different. And we talk very openly about how grief is, we're told to understand that other people have, like when someone's pet dies, it's the same kind of thing. And we're just like, it's not. It's not the same. I hate to say.
I know, and our grief therapist is like, yeah, there's different levels, but it's like,
well, we're just human, and we say no.
I'm like, no, my dog passed literally a month ago, and like I have to say, it was a little different when my little brother died.
Yeah,
it's a little different.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of different forms of grief that we're unwilling to label that way because it feels so unfixable. So in a certain light, I'm much more accepting of being like, losing a job, like your life turning out differently than you expected. Like there are so many small forms of grief, relationships ending, even if that person's still alive. But then the less generous side of me is like, if one more person is like, I understand what it was like to lose your mom, because when my 120-year-old grandma died, or the dog thing, like that makes me see red, and I refuse to dignify that.
100%.
And
100%. I'm so glad we're aligned on this.
I love my pets. Like that's a member of the family.
I literally love my dogs.
Ultimately,
yes,
it's a dog.
At the end of the day, no, Michaela, and we talk about this a lot on the podcast, like when people are like you just said, my grandfather at 100 years old, far too soon. He's gone far too soon. It's like, I'm gonna go ahead and say it right around the time, actually overdue, if we're being honest. But yeah, it's
like actually the math is certainly mathing in this situation.
And like it's like, and I hate to be this person, but it's like, no, you don't know like immense grief until you know immense grief, and then everything before that is like, oh, I didn't realize sadness like this existed. Do you think that that having that grief, like you, Laura before and Laura after, are two different people, and now you have this outlook on life? Or did you always grow up with this? Did you always have this? Is this something that was just instilled in you? Because she passed in 2020, and simultaneously, did you start your journey with this
so my business started in on March 13th, 2020, and my mom passed on August 11th. So, and she had been sick since I graduated. So my entire out on my own adult life had been very colored by that so far. And she was in hospice in my childhood home. My partner and I went back to Massachusetts to be with my parents, not really thinking this is it, but thinking it'll be easier if we're together, especially, mom's immunocompromised. Yeah. And then, the beginning stages of my business were built around watching her get sicker and then pass, and then the very shocking depths of my grief. And it wasn't a shock. I knew it was coming, but it has been, those things are very tied together in a way for me that I'm still continuing to unwind, because as someone with a background in disordered eating and a bad relationship with my body, I've noticed how those same patterns pop up for me with diving headfirst into my work. And it's something that's less self-destructive, because now I've got this thing that I'm really proud of and that I know that helps people, but that also makes it a little bit easier to sacrifice myself to. Because at a certain point when you're harming yourself, it's well, this is a little bit embarrassing. Am I going to grow up and figure that out? Not to make light of it, but that is sort of the first piece that clicked into place for me. But with work, that's something that we celebrate and we prize. And I think that has kind of, as I've built this business in public, for lack of a better word to call it, because when I started posting on social media, it was for my 100 friends and family members being like, hey, this is what I'm doing. It's $25 if you want in. And then slowly more and more people joined that community. And I've tried to not think too hard about what those numbers are and just sort of operate as I was, because social media became a very a real tool of creativity and connection for me. And on days where I like it less, I notice that has slipped away, and it's hard to maintain that when there are so many people watching, but that's what I try to do. But so in terms of going through this process of figuring out exactly what I mean when I say the things I say, and how I feel about moving our bodies, and what I think about how we're meant to take care of ourselves, and building a business and talking about that, it has been so important for me in every form of communication to be deeply honest about how I am and what I'm feeling, because that was always part of the deal, because I was advertising my business and having to be well, I guess I'm going to tell you about the fact that my mom is dying, because I might show up and have a really bad day. And I don't want to have to push down the part of myself that is grieving, because then I'm not honest with the person I'm training. And that completely severs the trust of this deeply vulnerable relationship. So it's always been part of the deal to show up and teach class and been y'all, I am having a bad day today, and we're still going to do this. And that's part of the coaching sessions, where it's okay, so you're having a bad body image day. That's in the room with us. Do you want to sit and talk about this? I don't think that's a bad use of our time. I don't think that's a waste. That's still taking care of you. Or would it be more beneficial to, maybe you want to push yourself a little harder today physically, because that would work out some anger or frustration, or just kind of somatically soothe you. But we have to be on the same page that this is what we're dealing with. We don't have to show up and have it be sunshine and rainbows and happiness and like I'm doing my perfect workout in my perfect matching set and my perfect blank sunlit room full of plants. Like that's not, there's a reason that's advertised to us because it's a freaking fantasy.
Yes. It's palpable, but it's not real.
It's fantasy. I think it's so true.
It's that fantasy. And of course humans want to live in that fantasy. But then when you really look at yourself, you're like, this isn't beneficial to me because it's not real. Yeah. And I think you
not
showing
sustainable.
up, it's not sustainable. And I think you showing up in your grief, in your bad days, it allows other people to say, oh, she's doing it too. And she's living to tell the tale, right? Like
we survived.
We're all doing that. Yeah, we survived this day. And, you know, when we see that, you know, I know for us, when we see other people dealing with their grief, it's like, oh, good. Okay. We're not alone here. We're not just the only ones dealing with this. And that's why all three of us have always been vocal about, our bodies, our, you know, things going on in our life. Like you just said, Laura, you have to show up so that you have this authentic connection with your clients. And it's like your clients are however many thousand followers you have. And same with us, right? It's like, then they become your friends and you have this authentic connection there. And then it transcends to now you're on how many continents, right? Like you're all over the world. And it's like, people catch on to that authenticity and people catch on to having someone to turn to when we live in a world of like perfection that just doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's like, you know. The thesis is not like people are lying to you, right? Like you said, Hunter, everybody just wants to be seen and understood. And usually it takes somebody being gutsy enough to be like, yeah, this is what's up, which we all instantly recognize. Like, this is the reason AI is not going to take over. Human beings are the best bullshit detectors that exist ever. We immediately recognize when like something is real, something is off. What our life feels like. And that's, it's not really, I think it comes with time and maturity, and it comes with making a lot of mistakes. Mistakes are a big part of the process of learning how to take care of yourself, especially physically. People are so afraid that they're doing things wrong. They're so afraid that they're doing the wrong form of exercise, or that their form's not perfect, or that there's some secret that they don't know about, because there's so much noise being thrown at us all the time. But there's it's not beneficial to you as like a person living in a human body that is literally different day to day to day to day to year to only be able to take care of yourself on your best days when nothing unexpected comes up and you feel awesome about yourself and physically you feel amazing and you like had your,
because how often is that even?
I don't think I've had a day like that in years.
I mean, truly.
But like you can get so far if you show up on even just the days that are mediocre and give a mediocre effort. Like that's more than what we're doing now. So see how far that gets you. And then maybe you'll have more days that feel good enough that you can do a little more. But like people don't show up to fitness spaces because they're lazy and confused. People come because there's something inside of them that's like, oh, I want to take a little better care of myself. That already exists. So I don't really think like it's my job, especially as like a group fitness instructor, to push people, which is probably one of my hotter takes, because some people really respond to that and that's their thing. And that maybe is not what I respond to, but that's fine. I'm not a trainer for every single person, you know, but I think like people just being there, just showing up to do stuff is already so hard. I think that you're already pushing yourself and you don't need me to tell you to do more. Usually we have a more successful relationship if the trainer kind of holds open the space of like, hey, could you back off a little bit? Or can we make a smarter choice here so that you're feeling better tomorrow and you could do this again, rather than give me everything you've got right now. That's the only thing that's acceptable. Especially like, I think a lot of us have heard that from a sport or a hobby or a career or a parent or a partner or a friend. Like that is a frame of mind that we're used to being in. And it's a frame of mind that if that was in our fitness class, which is so deeply unserious, like moving your body is such a hard and vulnerable thing to do, but it's also like we're just wiggling around at the end of the day. Really,
we're just flailing around.
It's not my friend Lauren Lavelle on everywhere. She's amazing. I adore her, and if you like my mindset, you'll adore her too. She's an amazing bar teacher, but she always says it's not that deep. It's not that deep.
Yeah. It's literally not that deep.
Give me 5%. I don't care.
Yeah.
Show up. Give me a few minutes.
Because we
so
are
often
flailing.
we're so afraid that we can't
So
deliver
true.
150% that we won't even bother giving that 5%. And like that 5% can get you very, very far. Would you rather like invest $1 a day or like play the lottery once? You know, like which is going to be better in the long run?
Yeah. It's so our culture too.
Absolutely.
Like the whole give 120% until you like literally can't move. And that's across the board with like anything we're asked to do. And I think that your approach of being like, hey, it's okay to show up kind of just like, you know, like one day that's okay. Like one day you're going to feel like maybe 100%. And one day you're going to just show up and be like, I just kind of feel like doing that, you know, like it really doesn't have to be so deep and so serious. And I love your whole outlook, and you guys have got to follow Laura on everything. TikTok, you're on YouTube. Is it all? Tell everyone where they can follow you, because you're
I'm on Instagram is Laura.Girard, and then this is so bad and annoying. You can tell that I didn't do it on purpose because I started before I knew it was going to be a career, but TikTok is LC Girard. And then
yes. How would anyone know?
I'm just glad it wasn't something terribly embarrassing. Like if I had picked what my email that I've had since I was 10, you know, like
like sweat girl 23
at least it's recognizable. And then I have a YouTube channel which has a bunch of free workouts on it if you want to check that out. And if you are interested in joining the Energy Academy, you can find that linked through all of my profiles everywhere, which is the easiest thing to do. We have 2 tiers of membership at $25 a month and $45 a month, depending on how many extras you want. I haven't raised those prices since 2020, and I'm very proud of that because that's still a lot. $25 a month is more than most people can afford.
Very accessible, and we'll be linking all of
Thank
that as
you.
well. Laura, you are absolutely incredible. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us. Thank you for...
We got to have you back on because there's so much more.
I'm about to DM you and be like, want to talk about death some more? Like you... Seriously.
We love talking about it. We love talking about it. Like it's like we always say, if you don't laugh, you'll cry when it comes to all that. So it's like you talk about it, it's deep. It's like you talk about the seriousness and the deepness, but there's also just like some dark humor of it. And you're just like, this is such a complex experience.
The only thing you get in your grief gift basket, like the only silver lining is your ability to like stop a dinner party dead flat in a second. Just like with a joke. It's so good.
Yes.
And whoever's laughing, you're like, okay, cool, those are my people.
And I'm like, you know what?
Everyone else is like thinking I'm
Nancy
totally
would
psychotic.
love that. What's your brother's name?
With her brother.
Tynan.
Yeah. He was amazing. He was like, you know, the silliest of the silliest
Our
gooses.
favorite joke recently is that we obviously as a family lean more left leaning, especially Michaela and I, and our joke, and our brother very much so. And our joke recently is that we've been not for real, but putting little Trump flags on his grave. Just as a giggle.
Just so people who come there think he was a big Trump supporter.
Oh my God.
We're just like... let's just... I mean, we're not actually doing it, but that's our latest...
He'd hate it.
Hey, did you
and that's
brush
enough.
up on the
newest you could go with like an RFK Jr. side. A little more benign, but like wild enough.
Yes, exactly.
Or just like cover it in American flags, so everyone's like, wow, he must have really
been patriotic.
Been a patriot.
We love just being...
We'll just do a whole episode like talking about honestly grief,
I mean, like pranking our dead brother that's a series in and of itself.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Put that on TikTok and that's going to go viral.
Really?
So morbid.
You got to. Oh my gosh, Laura, thank you so much. We'll have to Kayla's going to be out here like next month, but you're in New York. We all have to get together and get some drinks.
I would love that. This has been such a joy to get to talk to you both. Thank you so much for having me on. I can talk about this stuff for literal hours, and I do. So happy to be here anytime.
Because you do have a podcast
that's true.
too, right?
Fit Literate podcast. We're just coming back from our
Fit Literate
summer break, and it's the more unhinged side. I can be a little. I've really painted myself into a corner with being like #wholesome and authentic online. So that's a little more our uncut gems of getting to just rant about the internet. And usually we circle back to eugenics and we're shaking our fists at the sky and we're like, block everybody, go to the woods.
Was another thing I want to talk. Yes, we have got to talk about eugenics one time too.
So death, like a whole other podcast. Astrology,
eugenics, just astrology, just the hottest possible topics.
Just
like maybe some
podcast
finance while we're there, politics, and we'll just absolutely scare everybody.
Perfect.
Who listens to all of our feeds. Thank you so much, Laura.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you guys so much for listening. You can catch a new episode of Model Citizen every Thursday. And please don't forget to follow the podcast so you don't miss any of the action. We want to hear from you. So please leave a rating and review and follow us on socials for all the behind the scenes action at Hunter McGrady and Michaela McGrady. And don't forget, you are worthy, you are loved, and you are capable of doing all wonderful things. Bye, guys.